I'm trained as a chiropractor, but over the years, I've learned that you have to start addressing the whole person. The person is more than a spine, and the spine is important, but you have to look at the whole. So today in this office, we are holistic healthcare practitioners more than just chiropractors. And I grew up in Sweden. I came over to the US on a track scholarship. And then I competed in the Olympics for Sweden in 1992, finished 9th in the decathlon. And at the time, I thought I was really healthy and really fit. Turns out I was fit, but not so healthy because as an athlete, I was told to eat 3,000 calories of bread and pasta and grains every day. And then I supplemented heavily with chocolate and ice cream. And because I burned it all off, I thought I was okay. But in retrospect, I understand I was setting myself up for trouble down the road. So after my athletic career, around age 30, I started having some problems. And I got low back pain and often debilitating. So sometimes it'd be so bad that I had someone drive me to the office, and it'd take me 20 minutes to get out of the car so I could stand all the way up. And then I'd be on my feet all day, because if I sat down, I didn't know if I was going to get back up. And I was adjusted by every doctor at every seminar and every student, and it never really made much difference. It wasn't until I got it under some sort of control, but it wasn't really until I got Dr. Smith in here, who could adjust me the same way that I adjust other people, that I really started making a difference. And when the second breakthrough was when we started something called nutrition response testing, and we're going to demonstrate some of that for you today. And today, I'm still in the process of healing. I have less back pain, less brain fog. My acne is clearing up, because all of that it's part of the whole. And you're never done with healing. It's an ongoing process, but I keep getting better and better. So today we're going to talk to you about blood pressure. Anyone here have high blood pressure? Okay, 2 out of 4. And that's almost typical of the adult population. So there's 75 million people in the country that have high blood pressure, or that even know about it. That's 32% of adults. And it's a big deal. But the question is, what is blood pressure? Why do we have it? How does that work? So there's 2 numbers in the blood pressure. One's called systolic and one's called diastolic. So blood pressure is created when the heart squeezes. So when the heart contracts, it pushes blood, it increases the pressure, and it pushes against the peripheral resistance, against the tension in the rest of the body, in the blood vessels. So the systolic is when the heart is squeezing, and the diastolic is when the heart is relaxing. So that's just the residual pressure. It's the pressure that the heart is pushing against. And we need both of these numbers, because the diastolic sets the tone, and that determines how fast that blood is going to get out to the body. So normal is considered 120/80. And then they have these different levels that they call prehypertension, hypertension, stage 1 and stage 2. There has never really been any studies to demonstrate damage under a blood pressure of 160. So if you're under 160, you don't really you still want to kind of address the causes, but you don't have to worry nearly as much as they think that you have to. So 130, 140, yeah, it may be a little high, but there are no demonstrated consequences of it. But why do we have blood pressure? What is it for? It is for 2 reasons primarily. So it's to deliver nutrients, obviously. The blood carries all the oxygen and all the nutrients, And when the body needs more, we got to get more blood there faster. And the other reason is we got to have enough blood pressure to push it from the heart up to the brain, because gravity pulls blood down to your feet. And that's where you also need this residual pressure to keep all the blood from just rushing down to your feet. So the blood pressure, the difference between systolic and diastolic is primarily to get the blood from the heart to the brain. And then we also need to be able to adapt. So if you're laying down, then there is no gravity to push against, so the blood flows pretty freely, and you don't need a whole lot of blood pressure. You just need enough to keep the tone and a little bit to get it moving, but you don't need as much as these numbers. But then when you stand up, all the blood rushes to your feet because of gravity. Now your body has to adapt and increase your blood pressure very, very quickly so that you don't faint. And the people that have dizzy spells and fainting, their bodies can't react fast enough. That's another seminar. Another thing to understand about blood pressure, they talk about it when you go to the doctor and say, oh, you have high blood pressure, you got it. But blood pressure is not something you get. It's something that your body creates. Your body makes it happen. Every heart squeeze creates the blood pressure. Every second that your blood vessels constrict to maintain tone, the blood pressure is created in every moment of your existence because it has to adapt. So when you're running, when you're walking up a flight of stairs, you need higher blood pressure because there's more blood that needs to get out to the tissues. So your body regulates it and changes it based on that. So in every moment of your existence, it's a variable. And if it gets stuck in high, then there's something else that's wrong. And we'll get to that. So what about salt? We'll look at a few mechanisms here so you get an idea, because salt has been blamed on high blood pressure, and salt is bad. So if you have high salt intake, anyone ever notice you get thirsty? Okay, that's your body's way of saying, hey, we need a little water to dilute the salt. Body's pretty smart. And then you get, because you drink more water, your volume, your blood volume increases, and now your blood pressure goes down. But there's a mechanism in the body to handle this, and it's the most powerful blood pressure regulating mechanism that there is, and it's called diuresis, pressure diuresis. So whenever blood pressure goes up, it pushes harder against the kidneys. So the kidneys are like a filter, and they only let through so much water at a time, but when there's more water and more pressure, it's going to let through more. That's called pressure diuresis. So the kidneys are going to filter out more water, the volume decreases, and we return to normal blood pressure. So the salt has nothing to do with this, and we'll accept in a special case, and we'll get back to that. So salt is not a bad thing. We just need to get a quality salt. What about water? So you have a high water intake, you drink a lot of water. What happens then? Gotta pee, right? And then the volume decreases, and you're back to normal blood pressure. But if you drink a lot of water all the time, there's this idea that we should drink gallons and gallons of water all the time. And then what can happen is that we also lose some salt, okay? If you drink tons of water, you pee all the time, as you filter out all this water in the kidneys, you lose some salt along with it. But again, the body is just ingenious because the kidneys will reabsorb the water and it will reabsorb the salt along with it. So most people know that the kidneys filter out fluids, right? They don't know that you reabsorb 99% of that water. And along with it, you reabsorb 99% of all that sodium. Okay, so sodium's bad, right? Why would the body reabsorb 99% of something that's bad for you? Is the design that flawed? Like, no. Obviously, sodium is the dominant mineral in the body. It's vital. The body goes to extreme expenses to bring it back into the body. So salt is not an issue. You have kidneys to regulate it, to get rid of the excess, and to reabsorb what you don't, as much as possible. Get rid of what you don't need. And let's talk about one more example here, just so you kind of get the idea of how the body, how complex and intelligent the body is. So what about when you exercise? You go for a run. What happens when you go for a run? The muscles work harder. You need more blood in the periphery. You have to raise your blood pressure so that you can get the blood out to the working muscles. Does that mean you're sick? Should you take a blood pressure medication before going on a run? You need a pill because there's something wrong? No, the body is adapting. It's intelligent to have high blood pressure. And then, how come you don't pee yourself every time you go for a workout? Because when you have high blood pressure, you have pressure diuresis. It always works, except when you're exercising, because exercise is a form of stress. And the body knows that you're supposed to be able to go for a run without peeing yourself. So the brain knows that during those circumstances, it's okay to have high blood pressure. So it tightens up the kidney to keep the water in the body. Okay? So it's not a salt problem. It's not a high blood pressure problem. It's not an exercise problem. It is a nervous system problem, because normally when you're exercising, the nervous system can override what the kidneys are doing, okay? Because it's intelligent in that situation. So if you have high blood pressure normally, it's because the nervous system is overriding whatever other mechanisms because it has a reason to do so. Okay? So here are the reasons. First of all, we have to understand blood pressure is regulated. It's not something that happens to you. It's an intelligent mechanism. Your body's trying to get something done. Number one reason you have high blood pressure is something is interfering with the regulation. Your body is regulating, it's turning things on and off all the time. But if something's interfering, then the brain can get the wrong idea. All right? So for one thing that we find a lot in here that we're going to show you in a little bit is that your regulation can be blocked by toxins. Chemicals, metals, food allergies, pathogens, scars, electromagnetic fields. These can change how your nervous system is processing all this information, and your body can get the wrong idea and raise the blood pressure for the wrong reason. There could be a physiological need. If you have physical stress, like you're running, you're exerting yourself, then you need the high blood pressure, then it's not a problem. You could have a nutritional deficiency. If you're low on oxygen, what's the body going to try to do? It's going to try to send more blood out to those body parts. So heart rate has to go up, blood pressure has to go up. So if your body is missing stuff, you could have high blood pressure because of that. You could have an imagined physiological need. If you're under stress, but you're sitting in a chair, you're not running, but you're working on the bills or the next deadline, or you're trying to get something done and the kids are screaming, that's pretty stressful. And your body is still feeling that it's an imagined need. It's not a physiological need, but your body still perceives it. So you fire off your stress response system and your blood pressure goes up. Or this is the only time where salt matters. If your kidneys are unable to do that filtering, if they're unable to get rid of the liquid and reabsorb the proper components, then the salt is going to bind fluid and it's going to raise the blood pressure. So the salt isn't the cause, it's just makes it worse because the kidney isn't working properly. All right?
It's hard to see. It's hard to see what's written.
Oh, can you guys see? In there. Ah, okay. Did I not say it all? All right. So the 4 reasons why blood pressure may not be regulated properly is something is interfering with regulation, such as a toxin. 2, there might be a physiological need, such as physical stress or nutritional deficiency. There could be an imagined physiological need, such as emotional stress. You're not really working out harder, but your body thinks you're about to. Or there's some tissue damage. There's some physical organ or pathway or function system that's just not being able to regulate it accordingly, such as a kidney failure. All right. So that's essentially how blood pressure works. And taking a medication is not going to fix any of this. It's only going to interfere with the body's attempt at dealing with this. All right. So what are signs and symptoms? So symptoms are things like pain, and a sign would be high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Those are signs, things that we can measure. And that's kind of like messages that you get from your car, from an instrument panel. So if you're out driving and everything's looking good and a light comes on, then the light is not the problem. The light is telling you of a problem, okay? And if you have more lights coming on, then you have more things that aren't working. And if you don't address them, then your car will come to a grinding halt faster and be more expensive to fix. So how many people think that that would be a good idea? Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Right. We haven't fixed anything, right? We've covered it up. And I'm going to use the script to try to not talk too much, to try to stay on track here. And if we cover it up, it doesn't matter if we do it once or 1,000 times, the car is never going to get better until we address those things that they're trying to tell us about. And the body is the same thing. Symptoms like pain and heartburn and high blood pressure, they're signals, they're messages, they're not the problems, they're telling you of a problem. And as you can understand, therefore, you cannot create health by covering up symptoms any more than you can brighten a room by covering up the darkness. And every time that you do cover up something, you make it worse because you're allowing the underlying problem to get bigger, okay? Does that make sense in the car? If you leave it alone, is the problem ever gonna get smaller? No, and the body is the same way. So, unfortunately, the ultimate cover-up is our healthcare system, to the tune of $3.2 trillion. I can't even imagine that number. And that was a couple of years ago. Do you think it's more or less today?
Oh, it's a lot more.
Yeah. Are copays going up or down? Are deductibles going up or down? Okay. And that's $10,000 for every man, woman, and child in the country. And you could justify that money if we were the healthiest people on the planet. If we were just stellar examples of prime health, then that would be money well spent. But it turns out we rank 37th out of 37 industrialized nations. So whatever we're getting for the money, it's not health, right? We're getting symptom treatment. We have 5% of the world's population. We take 55% of all the drugs in the world and 80% of all the painkillers. Do we have less pain? No, we have the most pain because we're covering up the causes. And mainstream healthcare has two tools. They have drugs and surgeries, and then they have a million different tests to figure out which drug or which surgery to give you. But health is a state that occurs when everything is working the way it's supposed to, and there is no drug that's going to make anything work better. The drugs will stop signals, but they won't improve function. So the number one cause of death, about 1 million deaths a year, is due to the healthcare system. And this is from medical research, New England Journal of Medicine, Journal of American Medical Association, British Medical Journal. When you add it all up, drug side effect, hospital infections, unnecessary surgeries, complications, it's close to 1 million deaths a year. That's the same as 6 jumbo jets crashing every day, no survivors. Would you think twice about buying a ticket tomorrow? Right? But we keep spending $3.2 trillion on a healthcare system that does that. And it's not that the healthcare system is incompetent or evil. We're just using it wrong. We're using it for things it was never designed for. It's designed for emergency intervention. It's designed for life-saving when you have a broken bone, when you're bleeding out of your stomach, when you have a car accident, when you have a diabetic coma. Then they'll save your life, but they're not going to get you healthy. They're not going to get anything restored to health. They're not going to improve any function. So that's what we have to understand, what the difference is. And the healthcare system can save your life, but it has little to offer in terms of health. And we are here to talk about health. So the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest patients in the care of the human frame, in proper diet, and the cause and prevention of disease. Okay? The body is self-healing. We don't have to teach it to heal. All the little stuff has been figured out by whomever created this thing, right? Whoever did that wasn't stupid. There's a lot of perfect alignment, balance, function, homeostasis. All the little nitty-gritty is already figured out. We just have to give the body the stuff that it needs. So health is when the autonomic nervous system works. The autonomic nervous system handles everything about you that you don't have to think about. So growing hair, which isn't working in my case, digesting food and healing cells and beating your heart and so forth. It's the autonomic nervous system that does that. It processes 1 billion bits of information every second, and it turns things on and off to get things just right. And when it gets it right, things heal, symptoms go away. But there are 3 levels of function in the body. There's a passive system, which is bones, cartilage, connective tissue. They don't do anything on their own. Their job is to show up and don't break. The next level is active, and that's the muscles that move the bones and the cartilage and the connective tissue, as well as cardiac that pumps the blood. But whatever the muscles are doing, it's because of what the brain and nervous system is telling them. So if we take an X-ray and we have a misalignment, it's because the muscles pulled it crooked because the brain told it to. And if the brain did that, it's because the brain is confused or misinformed. And we'll get into some more detail on why that is. So here is how chiropractic works. The brain controls everything in the body has receptors. The receptors provide feedback so that the brain will know how to control the body, and the control results in movement that trigger receptors that send more feedback, and on and on and on and on. But the brain can only control the body to the extent that the feedback is accurate. Okay? All that feedback creates a picture of the world for the brain. If that picture is true and correct, the brain has a true picture. If that feedback is distorted, the brain doesn't know what the world looks like. And we're going to have high blood pressure, neck pain, digestive problems, etc. And chiropractic works by finding out where the feedback is missing or distorted. What puzzle pieces are missing in order for the brain to understand the body. That's what chiropractic does. We go in, when we move a bone, we activate receptors that improve the feedback. It's not about moving the bone, it's about what happens in the brain as a result of moving the bone. And when we can complete the picture and get the brain a better idea, then the brain knows what to do from there. And that's how chiropractic has worked since the start 120 years ago. But we have found in the last 50 years, this picture, the efficiency has changed because there's more variables. If signals were the only issue, then this would be a complete model. But there are other things that can interfere with the signals, and those are things like metals, chemicals, toxins, etc. And now, today, we have to start looking at those as well. I'm trying to stick to this. So now you're all going to be turned into health experts. We're going to put this all together for you. Brain controls everything in the body, but every organ depends on each other. Every organ is vital. That's why they're called vital organs. And each organ can only be as healthy as the cells that make them up. And you have about 100 trillion cells. And over time, these cells wear out. But this nucleus right here has DNA, and DNA is a blueprint. So this allows this cell, as it wears out, it allows the cell to make a copy of itself. So you get a new working copy. And how many of you knew that the body that you brought here tonight is 90% different than last year's model? 90% of the cells have died and been replaced with new ones. Some of them many times over, some of them every week. Okay, so then the question is, are the new cells getting better or worse than the old ones? Right? And in 7 years, you replace 100% of your body. So how would you like your next body to be? These are good questions, right? You should think seriously about them, because
7 years, you want to be dead in 7 years? I can help you with that.
So what are the factors that are going it's going to take to make the next generation of cells healthier? Turns out there's only 2 reasons cells get better or worse, and one is toxicity and the other is deficiency. So when you're deficient, that means the cell needs something that it's not getting. It's got to have it, but it's not getting it. Toxicity means that there's a stressor, there's some interference. The cell's trying to get the job done, but something is interfering, and it's just not working the way it's supposed to because of that. The first thing a cell needs is activation, stimulation. And the purpose of every cell is to do something. If you don't activate it, it won't do anything, and it has no purpose. You all heard of use it or lose it. That's why we need activation. Once you make that cell do something, you have to provide it fuel. Every engine that makes energy has to have fuel. That's pretty obvious. And that's the calories from fat, protein, carbohydrates. But fuel is not enough, no matter what well-meaning government agencies tell you. Have you ever heard of the population being overfed and undernourished? That's us. So it's not about the fuel, it's about nutrition. And fuel has very little to do with nutrition. GRPs are genuine replacement parts. If you're going to build new cells over the next 7 years, do you want genuine replacement parts or cheap knockoffs? Yeah. And whole food has genuine replacement parts. Processed food has cheap knockoffs. And whole food has essential amino acids and essential fatty acids, all in the right shape and form to fit into that new cell. Processed food does not. Whole food produced by Mother Nature for eons have all the enzymes, vitamins, minerals that you need to fully digest, absorb, and assimilate the food and turn it into healthy cells. If we don't mess with the food, it's already in there. Processed food has most of that destroyed. All the enzymes and most of the vitamins, minerals, and cofactors that you need to digest it have been lost, and most essential fats are lost as well. What's the number one thing that essential fats are for? What are they building blocks for?
Immune system,
Brain. 40% of your brain is an essential fatty acid called DHA, and it's very, very sensitive. Food processing and heat cooking destroys it. Okay, that's why they tell you eat fish, except you can't eat fish anymore because of all the mercury. So I don't mean to sound like a doomsday prophet here, but we got to paint you an honest picture first. So nutrition comes from living things, the way nature has made them, not synthetic fractions of vitamins from a chemical factory. Synthetic vitamins, which is 99% of everything sold, are made from glucose and cornstarch. Glucose and cornstarch can't sustain life, so why would we think that chemicals made from those things would sustain life? Everything you're being sold as a vitamin in the stores is cornstarch and glucose, basically, in various forms. There's no scientist that can create life or even a single cell. Have you ever thought about that? We can put a man on the moon, we can send satellites into orbit, we can make cell phones, we can do amazing things. No scientist in the world can make a single one of those, and you have 100 trillion of them. Okay, that's what life is. That's what biology is. It's different. Nature makes life, not labs. So if they can't create life, then they can't create nutrition either. Nutrition comes from nature. Finally, your body needs some peace. And your body can be in one of two states. It could be in stress and fight flight, or it can be in peace and feed breathe. That's your autonomic nervous system. It's in one of those two states. And your body can only heal and regenerate in a state of peace and relaxation. So anytime that you have stress, your body won't be able to heal properly. And that's what we're, same type of stress we're talking about that sends the blood pressure up also. So now you know what the body needs. Let's talk about the stuff that interfere. We'll go through that quickly because they're pretty obvious. Allergies, food allergies. And this is rather sad because now the fuel and the genuine replacement parts, the food that's supposed to keep us alive, now we can't tolerate it. Okay? And it's not because there's something wrong with the food, it's because we destroy the food and now our bodies have to work harder at breaking it down. So we deplete our bodies in the attempt to break the food down. And when we don't have the energy to do it anymore, we develop intolerances and sensitivities. Metal toxicity and chemical toxicity, they're rampant. There's more than 80,000 chemicals introduced since 1950. And there's so much heavy metals, we have to be careful with the fish we eat. Metals and chemicals interfere with signals and hormones and chemical messengers, so the body's communication is thrown off. And this wasn't even an issue 100 years ago. These things didn't exist in our environment 100 years ago. But today we have 3,000 to 5,000 chemicals in our food, air, and water every day. We can make some changes in our lifestyle to reduce the toxic exposure, but the real solution is to rebuild the cells, especially the liver, so that they can keep up and get rid of these things. And we have a natural elimination system, but it's getting backed up because we're not getting the things that we need. Immune challenges, those are the virus, bacteria, yeast, fungi, etc. And they don't cause the problem. Contrary to popular belief, they don't cause the problem. They come after the problem when your body is already weakened. When you've lost your defenses, then they are opportunistic and they take advantage of it. And then, of course, your body gets even weaker because it has to fight the stress from these bugs. Antibiotics are not the solution because they kill as much good bacteria as bad, and they have no effect on viruses. And yet, most people who go to the doctor with a cold, they get an antibiotic because they want to leave with something. The solution is to restore the health of the cells so the bugs are turned away. Next stressor is scars, and that's a surprise to most people, but it's one of the most common and most devastating stressors that we find. The body has energy pathways in the skin called meridians, and in acupuncture, they call this energy chi, and they work with it by placing needles. But if there's a scar on the meridian, then the energy can't get through. And normal skin is flexible, and the fibers have a certain alignment to them, but a scar, the fibers have no alignment. The fibers crisscross, and therefore the signal is absorbed or deflected. So again, it's an interference with the overall balancing communication in the body. And finally, EMFs, electromagnetic fields, kind of work on the same system as acupuncture, but instead of being in the skin, they're sort of everywhere at the same time. And that's also a new stressor. It started with electrical appliances like toasters and radio, and then computers became common about 20 years ago. And then since then, we got one more big item. What's that? Cell phones. Exactly. And not only is it the strongest field that we have, because it's always a receiver transmitter, but we keep it on our bodies most of our waking hours. And some guys with shirt pockets keep it 1 inch away from the other strongest electromagnetic field in the body called the heart. Okay, so two electromagnetic fields are going to interfere. They're going to push on each other, and the longer the duration, the greater the impact. So we just have to know and about how this works and try to get a little smarter about it. So these are the actual causes of disease and illness today. Okay, it's different than 100 years ago. This is a man-made world, processed foods and environmental stressors. And we have to smart up. We have to understand what these things are doing to us. We don't die from starvation and wild animals. We get sick over a period of 20, 30, 40 years from these things. And these are something that we can change and do something about. So let me ask you this, now that you are getting educated. If your body is missing something that it needs, is there a drug that can supply that need? No, that's not what they do. if there is interference from a stressor, is there a drug that can remove that interference? No. Okay, so you have to work with the body. You have to supply things it's missing. You have to increase signals, and drugs, they block signals. They reduce symptoms by interfering with the body. Okay, that's why it can produce an immediate effect, but in the long run, it will always create more problems. And the drug is interference, the drug is a toxin, so it can be useful in a crisis, but will always bring you further from homeostasis in the long run. So in this office, we don't care so much about diagnosing disease or treating disease, because the only way to get healthy is to deal with the cause. If you help the body with a cause, the body knows what to do. That's called innate intelligence and healing. So now the only thing we need to figure out is what specific deficiencies and toxicities that each individual has. And as it turns out, this is the good part, your body already knows. Okay? Your body's innate intelligence already have all the answers. We just need to know how to ask the questions. So, can I have a volunteer? And I prefer someone who haven't been here before.
You go.
What do you think?
So come on up.
He's gonna be it.
Thank you.
Thanks for volunteering.
So step over just a little bit that way
And
and
the
face
camera.
me. So we're going to show you something called muscle testing. We're going to explain what it is because it's a lot more to it. It's really simple, but it's more to it than people think at first. So hold your arm out for me. I'm going to push down. Have you done this with them?
She tried.
Okay.
He was stubborn.
Stubborn. All right. So it's not a wrestling match. So we'll fine tune it a little bit here. So match for me. So I'm only pushing hard enough that I'm certain that I have a lock. I'm just looking. I'm not looking for strength. I'm pushing. I'm increasing until there's a point where, okay, there it is. It's a lock. It's solid. If I push another 10%, it's going to be exactly the same place. Okay, that's the feeling I'm looking for. And match. Okay. There's that lock. So now move your right leg forward. Perfect. And hold for me again. Okay. So now I feel for that lock. And you're a strong guy, but you see how there's no lock. Okay. So relax for a second. So I'm pushing on the bone. The bone is held up by a muscle. The muscle is controlled by a signal from the brain. Okay. You broke him in for me. So from here to here, there is no difference in the bone. Bone is the same. The muscle is the same. So what changes from here to here is the brain signal, right? So that makes it a brain test. This is a neurological reflex, exactly like this one, okay? You don't have a choice about it. Your brain is going to behave certain ways, okay? And this is beautiful. It's the single most powerful diagnostic tool ever discovered, okay, bar none. So now move your left leg forward and match for me. And there's a lock, because this makes sense to the
More
body.
stable.
Yes, because we don't walk like this, we walk like this. So whenever we do this, that leg is an instruction. It's like a switch that turns this off. You're hardwired like that. You don't have a choice, okay? But now that we understand what muscle testing is, it's not a wrestling match. It's a neurologic reflex. It's a yes/no response. We can start asking the body, how does this work? How does this work? Is this a good thing? Is that a not so good thing? All right. So hold there. There's a good lock. So if I touch something, we'll start right here and hold. So that was a good lock. So that means there's nothing particularly wrong here.
That's
Thank
debatable.
you, Jesus.
That's
So
debatable.
turn a little bit here,
What's wrong?
just in case we get
What's wrong with
something on
this?
camera. So then we'll check a few
There's
more
some other
here.
points on the brain.
Hold. That one's good, and hold. Good, and hold. Good. There we get a weakness. So depending on what we touch, we're activating different things. And hold that. So right here is the cerebellum, and hold. So, and when I push there, there is no lock. When I take my hand off,
That isn't, yeah.
hold, hold there, see? There's a lock, hold, there's no lock. So the body is telling us there's some stress there. There's some misunderstanding, there's some confusion, there's some interference or something missing about that body part. So we'll keep going. Hold. Okay. How's your sleep?
Not so good.
Not so good. That's the pineal gland that makes melatonin and regulates your sleep patterns.
There you go. Take melatonin tonight. That's right.
He's not been taking it when he should.
And that's the frontal sinus, which is usually some sort of immune situation. Thyroid. What do we got? Cerebellum, pineal thyroid.
Stop fighting.
He's not gonna get me.
Too late.
And liver. So we got 4 things to play with. So all those areas, they're not diseased, but they'd like to be happier. Okay, they have some amount of degeneration or decline, and in order to get to optimal health, they would like to have something. Okay, so we're going to check a few things. Are you interacting with people?
Yeah.
Good. All right. So let's try RNA, tryptophan, or checks maybe.
Everybody laughed about your head.
Oh, I did. It's like, there's something wrong with my head.
All right. So here, this is ribonucleic acid. This helps with cell repair, especially nervous tissue. So we're going to check that cerebellum and hold. And now your arm is rock solid. You have that back.
It blew my mind too, man. Don't feel bad.
You push harder. No. Wow.
It blew my mind too.
Wow.
2 fingers. He did that with 2
All right,
fingers.
do that back.
Okay. There's no doubt. So this looks really weird, but everything has a little bit of energy. Every matter is actually energy. All the molecules, they have energy patterns and pathways like little fingerprints. And they can travel a certain distance, just like light gets in through glass, or like cell phones go straight through these walls. The energy from these nutrients also travel a few inches. So when you hold them, then your body can determine if that's a match or a mismatch. Okay? So let's hold on to that, and let's see if the thyroid also gets better. Okay? But the thyroid doesn't care. Okay, so that one's specific for the brain. And hold the liver. And the liver doesn't care one bit. Okay, now let's try this one. So this is something that typically the thyroid likes. Hold. And we got a rock
Wow.
solid muscle. The cerebellum says
Nope.
couldn't care less. Hold, liver, couldn't care less.
That was crazy.
Because different areas have different requirements. Okay?
Yeah.
And by experience and muscle testing, we can figure out what those requirements are. Liver,
Just for thyroid.
Right.
Gain away.
Liver.
Goiter.
That's what-
Liver, huh?
No, that was the thyroid that time.
Yeah.
so hold that
Belly.
and let's see. So this is still brain, but pineal is kind of special. Let's see if that one likes it.
Special.
Hold. Okay. and the pineal says, doesn't make a bit of difference. And I don't know if this will, but let's see. Hold.
Wow,
Sure enough. Okay,
what's that?
so this is oar checks.
Uh-oh.
Okay,
Since we're on camera, I can't give you the nickname for them,
okay.
but they help the body regulate certain hormones.
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha. I think I-
And now this is liver nutrients. And that makes the liver rock solid, but oh, thyroid doesn't care, pineal doesn't care. All right? So
Okay, hold
thank
on.
you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay.
Oh, one more thing. Do you have a physical pain somewhere?
Yes, I do.
Where's that?
My knee.
The knee. Okay.
I had total knee replacement done a couple years ago.
And it
She
still
wants it
hurts.
over here. This thing bugs me every single day.
Okay.
Making him work.
Actually, let's get a chair.
Yeah, okay.
That's it.
Prevents me from running. I can't. She, ask her.
Yeah, we
Complain
went for a
about it
walk.
every single day. Or-
Okay. So take this hand and touch the knee. Just put your whole hand on it.
Okay.
And hold. Okay. And there's nothing there. So when you touch, just like the organs, when they have stress, if there's another body part where you have pain, even if it's not an organ, it's still gonna unlock that muscle. Now touch that again. And hold. Okay, and it didn't help. So it's just checking if maybe there was a liver, because it was the only one out of these that I could sort of conceive. But let's try some wheat germ oil.
You know about my knee.
Mm-hmm.
Two new ones.
Big
Two,
scar.
yeah.
Two new ones
Second.
within
So
6 years.
touch that knee
Okay.
Within
and
6 months.
rock solid.
So it's a scar.
Because I see a big nasty scar,
Oh, yeah.
and scars interfere with signals, and wheat germ oil helps restore, soften scars. Okay, there's probably more stuff, but we're not going to get in too much detail here. So, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Sure. They be comfy.
Now my shoulder hurts.
Yeah, what do you got for shoulders?
Stay around a couple of minutes afterwards.
Figure out.
We'll show you exactly that. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Okay, we need some new tools. We live in a different world. This world has electromagnetic fields and toxins. We need better tools. And the muscle testing is a tool that lets us evaluate these items because it deals with the electromagnetic system of the body. Okay, you can run $1 million worth of blood work and you're not going to find out as much as we just did.
Mhm.
So the goal is to find personally designed clinical nutrition. Why is that? Because we're as different inside as we are on the outside. And every event that you've been through in life, every encounter, everything you've eaten has adapted you and changed you in some way. So it's not just about how different we are on the genetic level, it's our life experience. We are all different. And that means we need a different combination of things to unlock our specific situation. So with muscle testing, we can ask, what's the first thing we have to handle? What is the cause of that problem? What's the solution to that problem? Then once we got that figured out, we move on to the next thing. And it turns out, even if we find 20 different organs or body parts that you have pain or stress in, we don't have to fix them all. We just have to fix the ones that the body can't fix on its own. And once we get past those, the body can handle the rest. So here's another quote. All truth passes through three stages. First, it's ridicule. Second, is violently opposed. And third, it's accepted as being self-evident. I just love that quote because 1,000 years ago, everyone knew that the earth was flat. And then Copernicus and Galileo claimed that it wasn't, and they were banned and arrested, and there were book burnings and so forth. And today, it's self-evident that the earth is round. We laugh and we say, how could they be so ignorant? They must be really stupid back then, right? So we're no smarter, we just have more references, right? And our references change all the time. But it's the same old story, no matter what the topic is. First, it's ridicule and opposed. And then when the evidence becomes overwhelming, then they say, oh yeah, I knew that along. That was my idea. How could they be so stupid? Okay. So we do these seminars because the healthcare system has failed. We have no healthcare. And people need to start knowing the truth about health. But science is not just about understanding a mechanism. Science is about exploring findings and developing systems that can be duplicated, even if we don't understand how it works, because muscle testing is not in a realm that we completely understand. Life isn't something we understand. So we just have to take it on faith. If we can duplicate it, let's use it. So nutrition response testing is extremely accurate and reproducible. The findings are very consistent and have produced great results on a regular basis for thousands who have tried just about everything else before they come here. So that is real clinical science. So if you'd like to have an evaluation for the nutrition response testing, the first thing we'd need to determine is if you're a candidate for nutrition response testing or not. If you're not, it's unlikely that it would ever help you. But if you are, we believe that nothing else would help you as much. That's our experience and belief based on what we've seen. So we'd like to offer everyone a quick 1-minute screening so you can see what it feels like if you haven't had it done. And that way we can determine if you're a probable candidate for nutrition response testing. And then we have a quick form for you to fill out as well. And then after that, Dr. Smith and I can check you and we'll be happy to answer any questions. So the initial visit is about an hour and a half. The normal fee is $180. However, this month is our community outreach month because we're just pulling out all the stops to try to flood the office and to really get the message out there. So we're asking your help with that also. So if you're here on a referral and you got a little referral card, then it's only $59 for that initial evaluation. And if you have other people you'd like to tell, we have a seminar every day where you can bring them in. You can check the topics. All the topics are life-changing. If you're an existing patient, well, you're on personal injury, so that's covered by that anyway. Did you have something? Are these questions or? Yeah, can't quite. It's your. Okay, so I think there's genes. Okay, if you have, so here's a question from online. If you have high blood pressure in your family, is it possible to beat your genes and not have to go on blood pressure meds? Absolutely. What genetics are, your genes, they are a predisposition. Your genes give you a certain resistance. It gives you a certain capacity to adapt and cope. And it's life isn't fair. Some people start up here and they can do anything they want and not get a symptom in their lifetime. And other people start down here. That's their family inheritance. But that's just how much resistance you have. It doesn't mean you have to develop a disease or a symptom, because as long as your stressors stay lower, then you can still have a healthy lifestyle. So, for example, so all the things that we talked about here are absolutely applicable, no matter how many people in your family have it. They talk about a breast cancer gene, for example. So they say, oh, this is the worst breast cancer gene. If you have this breast cancer gene, then you have a 30% risk of developing breast cancer in your lifetime. So this gene causes breast cancer. No, it doesn't, because 70% of the people don't get the breast cancer, but they don't study what those people are doing different, okay? You have a predisposition with a gene, but you still need, in order to get the cancer, you need a promoter and a trigger. You still need that stress, that toxicity to trigger those genes. So all the things we talked about, if you help the body de-stress and detox, and you improve the nutrition and the body's ability to cope, then you can have just about any gene makeup and not develop those diseases. Krill oil, is it good? Krill oil, there are two ways to answer that. The first is that krill oil is really expensive, and even if it is a good product, it isn't necessarily the most economical way to get your fish oil. I suggest you eat as much clean fish as you can, and then you supplement with a good quality omega-3 fish oil supplement. Krill oil has some good properties, but it is very expensive and the dosages are typically very low. Another way of looking at that is that krill is usually the food of whales, and they filter it through their filters that they have in the mouth, and it's not typically, humans don't encounter a lot of krill in their environment. So it's not to say that it's a bad food, but it's also not in our historical inheritance. Can the cell phone cause impotence from being in the pocket? So I don't want to say yes or no to that, but we have to understand that anything can cause anything. And stress is cumulative. Stress can be chemical, structural, or emotional. And every little bit, every item of stress accumulates and adds on top of every other form of stress. So I wouldn't say that, oh, well, that's the cause, but it is certainly a possible component of the stress that interferes with the body. Look at some more of the videos and look at the bigger picture, but certainly I would not keep my phone in the pocket more than I have to. And if I have to, I would put an electromagnetic chip to neutralize as much as possible of that radiation. All right. So did you guys have any questions? Oh. Low blood pressure. That's a good question. We hinted a little bit about that, and it's not as big of a deal because there's so many people that have high blood pressure that all the focus is on that. Low blood pressure mostly is an issue for people with adrenal fatigue, and it's called orthostatic hypotension. That means when you're laying down, the blood pressure is easy to maintain, but then as soon as you stand up, and like we said, all the blood rushes to your feet, the body can't respond fast enough because the adrenals have to make adrenaline, which is a vasoconstrictor, to squeeze the blood vessels tight to kind of push the blood up into the brain. And if the adrenals are tired, they can't react fast enough, and those people get dizzy and lightheaded and sometimes even faint when they try to stand up. So that's the most common problem of low blood pressure, and that has to do with adrenal fatigue. And adrenal fatigue is rampant because of how much stress we have. However, we find in this office, based on the testing that we do, that it's almost always secondary to something else. I used to find adrenal fatigue on just about everybody I checked it, and I still do. But by the time we handle things in a certain priority, then something else takes care of it first. So it's,
She said it was 102/60.
yeah, so that's on the low side. There are some nutrients from Standard Process that can help. I can't remember offhand, but it's in the Cataplex series. Some of those support the sympathetic and some support the parasympathetic. So get back to me on that.
And the same person asked, is adrenal fatigue an emergency, and how do you know?
It is not an emergency because it's something that develops over years and years. It is something that you want to address because the extreme form of it is called Addison's disease, and that is when your adrenals fail completely. And that is one of the worst things that you can have. So you want to look into someone. In this office, we use nutrition response testing. In general, you want to look into things that can support the adrenals, but also do a lot of relaxation training and meditation and things like that to just kind of lower the stress as part of your lifestyle. Standard Process has 3 supplements that work really well for adrenals. It's desiccated adrenal, Drenamin, and Drenatrophin. And someone will need to test you to figure out which one would be right for you. But again, that may only be a little bit of a patch on the problem if there's something else at a deeper level.
How do you know if fish is farmed or wild?
You have to read the package. And you never want to eat anything farmed because they feed it the absolute worst garbage they can find and still make the fish grow. So whatever you eat, whether it's a fish or a chicken or an egg or a piece of meat, it has to come from an animal that had a healthy life. Otherwise, it's not healthy for you.
It's 5:21, so you're awesome.
Very good. Thank you so much for coming. If you have questions, if you'd like to check out some more things specifically, like your shoulder, we'll be happy to do that.
That was just for me pushing on it.
He was just.
Oh, okay. All right.
I believe I'm coming for the next one. When am I coming back?
For you, since you're so acute, if you can make it in every day for the rest of the week, then we'll start spreading it out a little bit.
Is 6 o'clock, 5:45, okay?
That should be fine, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just check with the front desk.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'll see you tomorrow.
All right.
Dr. Ekberg, are you going for the next Olympics?
No. I only look young.
Not feeling your shoulder again.
So what are we doing now? Got it?
One more?
No, I thought we were doing a 1 minute. All right.
1 minute.
And then an hour and a half after that.
Do you want to get tested?
What was the little?
All right, thank you so much. We're happy that some of the YouTube people made it also, and we look forward to next time. Thank you.
All right, here's their stuff.